Hello and welcome to Perspectives, where we'll take a deep dive into the issues of the day and where we'll take a look at people's opinions on such issues. I am Ruth Osime. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. Recently, Kemi Badenoch, the Nigerian-born leader of UK's Conservative Party and its first black woman leader, sparked debates with her critique of Nigeria. Similarly, former President Olusegun Obasanjo's claim that Nigeria was a failed state has reignited discussions about leadership and accountability in the country. Adding to the discourse, Afrobeat star Davido on the Big Homies House podcast warned Nigerians in the US against relocating home, citing economic instability and governance failures. These candid remarks have divided opinions, with many Nigerians torn between cultural pride and the reality of the issues raised. For some, airing such critiques on global platforms feels harsh, bringing unwanted negative attention. Beyond these headlines, though, millions face uncertainty, diasporans reconsider ties, and citizens strive to thrive amid untapped potential. Yet, stories of resilience and success of Nigerians at home remind us that hope endures. Today, we would explore these critiques and what they mean for Nigeria's identity and future. Most importantly, we'll ask what it would take for leadership to harness the country's potential and restore its dignity on the global stage. We're heading for a short break, but stay with us because next up will be our beautiful guests, Joseph, maybe I should say handsome, not beautiful, Joseph Edgar and Jesutega Onokpasa. A third guest is planned to join us, but that will be a little later on in the show. Perspectives will return in just a moment. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. It's now time to get more acquainted with our wonderful guest, consisting of Joseph Edgar, popularly known as Duke of Shomolu, who is an investment banker, theatre producer, social critic, and a columnist at this day newspaper. He's been joined here by Frank Tietie, a prominent Nigerian lawyer, activist, social entrepreneur, and public affairs commentator. We're as well being joined by another lawyer, public affairs commentator, and a member of All Progressive Congress, Jesutega Onokpasa. Gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to have you here on this show for a very important topic of discussion. So let's start with you, Edgar. What are your initial reactions to the comments made by Davido, Kemi Badenoch, and former President Obasanjo? Is airing Nigeria's issues on a global platform an affront to cultural pride? Or is it a necessary step to force accountability?
Okay. Thank you very much for having me here this morning. And also, I don't know why I'm asked to speak first when my more prominent people are here. But that's it. You see, these three individuals, I want to divide this conversation into two. So I want to look at it from a psychological point of view. Now, Kemi's side of it, you see a detachment from our heritage. You see a pushback. I don't want to be part of that, not interested in that, don't bring it near me. And then that makes it vile to me. Now, but for Davido and Obasanjo, you see a cry for help, as it were. We are in this. Things are bad. Things are not getting better. So let me shout. Are you seeing the difference there? The other person has stepped out and is throwing mud. These other two, are out there globally trying to use their weight, trying to use their influence, to pull in global attention to the problem, to the very, very unique problem that we are facing in this country today. So you will see me in my writings standing very firmly with Obasanjo, standing very firmly with Davido. I don't even know why Davido has been pulled into this conversation, because I looked at everything. He didn't say anything he didn't say anything wrong. He just said the truth as best as he could. Obasanjo has always been like this, right from his statement during IBB's time of SAP having a human face. He's saying those things from the point of a patriot, of a passionate Nigerian. while the other person is the worst case of an Uncle Tom that we can imagine. A house girl who has been given a front row seat, and she feels that the best she can do is to throw mother where she's coming from. Britain just came out from a prime minister with Indian heritage. We didn't hear all of those things about India from him. Our own team was always different, you know. So that's the angle I'm looking at the two as my first shot.
Okay, let me get to Tietie. Frank, are you in the house?
Of course, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good that you made it on time. Thank God for that. So, Kemi Badenoch's success story contrasts sharply with her critique of Nigeria. But do you think her remarks were politically motivated, or are they a fair critique of the system that she escaped?
Oh, well, could we really say she escaped the system? She was born in the United Kingdom, if I am not mistaken. And then if you see her success, her rise to the top as the leader of the Conservative Party, it's just a testimony to the success of the British integration system, that they are able to change a black woman to think and act as if she was originally British, and she thinks she's British. The British have been very, very smart in the way they have colonized the entire world, even up till now, with the popularity of the English language. And just look at us, just look at our cultures that have all been invaded by the English culture. And it simply shows that they made a real success out of colonialism. And Kemi Badenoch is just a fine example to that extent. And now, if you consider the things that she has said, especially when it has to do with the description of Nigeria as a somewhat failing state in the line of President Obasanjo, and then the painful expression by Davido that those who have successfully made it out of this country should not come back. These are very unsavory comments. I think I'm a bit more disappointed in Davido's comment than Kemi Badenoch, because she was speaking in terms of political correctness. With regards to former President Obasanjo, you cannot take it away from him that he's a man who speaks the truth at all times, and that those statements were an expression of his frustration at the system. And he is always attacking his successors. He has not spared them, whether it was Jonathan, whether it was Buhari. He had always attacked them in the expectation of better living conditions for Nigerians. So I think that it's a wake-up call for us who still have remained in this country and have refused to go anywhere else, in line with Nebeli's Andrew, don't check out, which means even the military did so much more to encourage us to stay in and solve our problems. What kind of escapist mentality is that? That we will not stay back and solve our problems and hope to go to Western countries and live comfortably and begin to throw all sorts of criticisms at government? You should be here and salvage it together, in the words of Andrew, who was advised not to check out. So we are here.
Okay. Let's get to Jesutega, Onokpasa. Is Jesutega there? Okay, can you hear me? Hello, how are you? Can you hear me? Onokpasa, can you hear me? Okay, while we're trying to sort Onokpasa out. Okay, can you hear me, Onokpasa? Can you hear me now? Okay, let's get to the next guest. Let's get back to Edgar. Edgar. My Rasta brother. So, how much responsibility, all this apportioning of blames, how much responsibility do the Nigerian people bear for systematic issues that were raised and have been criticized? Are we too focused on blaming leadership while ignoring social complicity?
Okay, so that your question is very hard. It'll be big English, all of that. You can see, I've always pushed for the emergence of the followership. You get, because we've tried leadership since that this has failed us consistently. You get, so let's start trying followership. You know, we can't get it right if the followership is not right. You know, so take for example what just happened this week at the Abuja court case with Yahaya Bello. You see people that he has been alleged to have stolen from coming to court and hailing him to the extent that he now had to ask them, you know, to calm down and allow the court proceedings to go ahead. You can see that the problem is not the followership. Do you get in this country? Because the followership of this country have not gotten to the point where they can stand up and demand, you get, for certain things from leadership, and that's why we have the kind of leadership that we have, and that's why that now what gives people like this Kemi person the effrontery to go on that platform to say the counter that she's saying, you know. But you know, to go back to Obasanjo and Davido, I still very strongly do not see anything wrong with what they've said. If there's fire in your mountain, there's fire in your house, you must shout. You must shout. Shout in the bid to get help. Do you get? Not shout in the bid to say, oh, it's being sycophantic and all of that. My colleague has said that Obasanjo was criticizing all the presidents since him. I'll ask you a very simple question. Which president have we had since him? These ones that have passed after him, are they president in the real sense of the word? Which president have we had since him? So do we prefer for somebody who has that platform, who has that leverage, who has that reach to remain silent because he does not want to be labeled as a I too know? Is that the kind of leaders that we're looking for? I think very strongly that the followership of this country should take this chemist issue, take whatever it is that we're accusing Davido for, whatever it is we're accusing Obasanjo for, as a final call to rise up and say no to the things that are happening in this country right now.
Edgar, and this also applies to Tietie. Some would argue that as an elder statesman, do you understand, to a certain extent, some would argue that as an elder statesman, Obasanjo to a certain extent owes it to protect our cultural pride and heritage. In other words, don't wash your dirty name in public because of the negative effect this might have on a global platform. Albeit that, yes, we do have these issues. That he should have weighed his words better and be a bit more diplomatic in throwing us under the bus, even though we know that maybe we deserve it or don't deserve it, but we expected that at least to a certain extent.
That is why that's one of the reasons why we continue to have the problem that we have in the country today. Do you get? Where you see things, you don't shout. You see things, you don't shout. So because an elder statesman, things are going this thing, we should not shout. We are going to borrow more money than we can ever pay back. You should not shout because it's a global. I don't know what to call him. I was with him last week, and he told me clearly he has not been invited to the State House since the inception of this administration. He's been blocked out.
Okay, let's get back to Onokpasa. Onokpasa. Can Onokpasa hear us now?
Yes, how are you?
How are you, Onokpasa? How are you? Now, as you heard with Edgar, he felt that...
I can hear you.
Okay. Welcome. Good to see you. As you can hear from Edgar's opinion, he felt that Obasanjo did right by voicing and making public our situation here in Nigeria. But what is your response to this characterization, and how should the government plan to address the issues he raised?
Well, first of all, apart from Obasanjo being a former president, he's a citizen of the Federal Republic. He has freedom of speech. He has a right to be concerned about his country and about his countrymen. So also my little son, David Adeleke Davido. And I'm a bit nuanced about Kemi Badenoch's own intervention. You know, it seems a bit too servile. You know, you are over there. She seems trying too hard to please the British to integrate herself into their system. Nevertheless, we must acknowledge what is. Our citizens are hungry. Simple. They are hungry. That's a statement of fact. And that is not what we envisaged when we were campaigning or forming a government. Far, far, far from it. In fact, it got to a stage that we were being called Agbadurians, and our boast was that we will produce so much food for Nigerians that all Nigerians will become Agbadurians as well. Where is the food? There's no food. Rather, we are busy in fighting, you know, and then we claim to be fighting corruption. As far as I'm concerned, there's arguably more corruption going on right under this administration, under our nose, than we are trying to fight in previous administrations. You know, so I don't begrudge them their criticism at all. It is for us as a government to wake up and do the needful to take care of our citizens.
Thank you. Can we have Frank back in the house?
Oh, yes, indeed.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, how might, because some people have also complained that there's been no response from the government based on these criticisms. So how might the presidency's silence on Obasanjo's criticisms and Kemi and Davido be interpreted politically? Does it reflect restraint, indifference, or a lack of coherent counter-arguments?
I think it's an acknowledgement of the obvious and rising above churning out well-scripted responses that are becoming very much tiresome. And they know that they don't want to continually play to the gallery of usually issuing empty statements in response to obvious truth. Has our country really not failed? Have we not been a disappointment, not to ourselves alone, but to the entire African continent? You need to know how much the rest of Africa is so disappointed in Nigeria, the supposed giants of Africa. So is it because the rest of the continent is being, modest by not telling us that we failed them? Do you know the height from which Nigeria has fallen? Well, do you know, I mean, not to even talk about history, the one I even experienced in my 5 decades on this earth, in this country, in the 70s. So please, I want to hold a bit of some brief for Kemi Badenoch. She has to do everything she can to distance herself from this kind of quagmire that we have here in this country. And then she should mind her business. And I said, whatever she has said, whatever how much she decides to, to stay away from the Nigerian situation, to disconnect from the very many calls by Abike Dabiri to get connected, she is well justified. And it simply testifies to the fact that the British have successfully brainwashed somebody, and the person who is black, who has a black skin, actually thinks she's white. So she's entitled to that. We cannot hold anything against her. And if she continues to say that, to distance away herself from Nigeria, that's perfectly in order. Now, but to criticize Obasanjo, it's out of place. That's a man, apart from being head of state, he fought a civil war. And to think that after he left as head of state, he devoted much of his time to becoming an international statesman, promoting peace and promoting the dignity of Africa, fighting against apartheid until it was dismantled. Obasanjo should at every point in time be very, very uncomfortable with the state of Nigeria, given the dreams that he had in the 70s, given the dreams that he had when he handed power over to Shagari in 1979. I keep maintaining that, well, I'll stay within the ambit of your question, whether the silence of the presidency could be misinterpreted. It cannot be misinterpreted. It is simply an acknowledgement. I will maintain, I don't know whether I was able to make this point enough. How on earth would a very, very influential personality like Davido, it doesn't matter whether he's a very young person, he's an astute musician, very successful, in fact, he's a pride of Nigeria, having taken Afrobeat to a new height. And then you use that kind of influence to discourage persons abroad not to come back, forgetting that this Nigeria is supposed to be the headquarters of the black man in the entire universe, in the entire earth. You imagine that? So if we have a problem here, if our country is dysfunctional, shouldn't we have the best brains, of the best Nigerian brains out there to come here and salvage the situation, whether politically or in terms of applying technology or investment? So that was a huge disappointment and a big blow on the part of Davido. Now, for the presidency, it is time for us to go beyond those old
Tietie, I have to interrupt you there. Because on one hand, you're saying it's okay for Obasanjo to criticize Nigeria because of who he is, and Davido can't. Both of them have done well for Nigeria. Both of them are good ambassadors for Nigeria.
Please. Excuse me. Davido wasn't criticizing Nigeria. Davido was discouraging persons who have successfully jackpot in quote from coming back. I mean, why should it be? So what kind of message is that?
Criticize.
That's the problem.
Wait, Tietie. Criticize and complain are almost the same thing. Obasanjo said it was a failed state. Davido said, don't come back to Nigeria.
If you take them...
So if you put them in parallel to each other...
I feel it's obnoxious and highly offensive to discourage Nigerians from coming back. Whereas the peculiar problems we have here can only be solved by Nigerians and not looking up to persons abroad.
Yeah, but Obasanjo also said it was a failed state.
Ruth,
of course, look, if you look at the failed state index, where are we in the failed state index? So if the man is referencing a matter of fact, are you blaming him? Look, what are we talking about? How do you become a failed state? Are we not a failed state as a matter of fact? Now, should that be a basis for us to say we should abandon the state? No, it's simply a call for us to wake up.
I think that's a mischaracterization.
That's a mischaracterization. Can I say something?
What the young man, David.
Can I say something?
I think okay.
He was... hello?
Somebody's talking.
Can I say something?
Yes, can we get back to Edgar?
Sorry, let me just say something.
Edgar, you were saying something.
Yeah, please. Nigeria is not a failed state. Nigeria is an almost failed state. There's a big difference. Because we still have a semblance, no matter how caricature-like you get, of order. We are not yet in total anarchy. Do you get? So we are not a failed state. We are almost. You know, and that between almost and failed, you get me now, can be 100 years, can be 1 week.
Okay, do you see any
Davido's case, I'm coming.
Okay,
I'm
go
coming.
ahead.
Yes, there's a massive difference. There's a massive difference. And I don't think that what Obasanjo was saying. I think Obasanjo was just shouting a note of warning. Do you get? Now, for Davido's case, there's historical precedence in South Africa. During the apartheid, Hugh Masekela and Miriam Makeba, they went on exile and they fought for the blockade, economic and otherwise, of South Africa until a responsive government was put in place. You get? So Davido, with all of his global influence, for me, is saying the same thing. He's not saying that I'm not Nigerian, like Kemi is saying. He's not saying that Nigeria is I don't want where I'm running to come and watch than where I'm coming from. He's just saying that for now, you get, don't go there just yet. And do not forget that Davido is in the opposition. His uncle is PDP, and he fought for a PDP government in Lagos. And Davido is politically conscious. He was among the initial leaders of the NSAS before it went haywire. Now, for Kemi, I don't blame that Kemi person. Honest to God truth, I don't blame that Kemi person. I blame our leaders who not get sense, who don't have respect for themselves and dignity. What is Abike Dabiri looking for there? I don't die. What is Abike Dabiri looking for there? What do we need her for? If we are a country that respects themselves, 200 million people, what do we need Kemi for? Did we vote for her to represent our interests there? The woman, I tell you, what will the photo op even do for us?
Nonsense.
You get 200 million people. Britain is an island. If we have respect for ourselves, if we have the kind of leaders that should take us to where we are going to, then Kemi should be rushing to us for help.
Who the hell is Kemi?
What is she? 1976, she was in Surulere here now. See, we must begin to learn how to position ourselves with dignity. We see our president in international photo ops standing at the back. We see ourselves as Nigerians not even walking through international airports with pride. We see Ghanaians, a smaller country, not up to the size of Lagos and Oyo State put together, walking around with pride. We are walking around like slaves, like eunuchs, because of poor leadership. And then when a international giant like Obasanjo stands in the public to say, oh, there's a problem, we say he's not the bath. See, the federal government have replied him. let me correct you, Ruth, and my brother here. Federal government replied him. That man, Sunday Dare, issued a statement. I refuse to read that statement because that statement is just a template from the Buhari regime. Anytime Obasanjo says something, they will say he's not a bath. They will say he's not a chop. They will say he's a polygamist. They will say he's a pedophile. How does that change the exchange rate of the naira? How does that change the leakages that we are seeing in this country? How does that change the continued rubber stamping of federal government policies by the State House of Assembly? Whether Obasanjo the bath or not the bath. You get? The government replied him in the same way they've always replied him ever since he has put it upon himself to be. Obasanjo can be a gowon. Is that what we want? If that's what we want, not a problem. Obasanjo, a gowon who just does, it's not, all he just does is let us pray. You get? He can be, but his man has said to take all the insults that is thrown upon him just for the truth. For the truth. And what is the truth? What exactly did he say? What has the widow said that is far from what is going on in the country? Inflation is 33.something% and is rising.
Okay, Edgar, let me get to Onokpasa.
The exchange rate.
Let me get to Onokpasa.
Okay.
You know, so not only you be my guest. Let me get to Onokpasa. So Onokpasa, I wanted to ask you something. If Kemi Badenoch had remained in Nigeria, many argue she would never have risen to her current position as leader of the UK's Conservative Party. So when do you think the man no man? When do you think the man no man era would end, allowing merit to take precedence in our political system? What further steps can the government take to foster inclusivity and reward merit over privilege and connections?
I don't know. And frankly, I don't even care. The truth is that everything will balance itself. That's how life pans out. You know. What I would like to comment about more is that I still insist that Kemi is trying a bit too hard to integrate herself into British society. There's no need to disparage the people you left back home because you are the leader of the opposition in Britain. I wish her well. I actually envisage her becoming Prime Minister of Britain, and when she does, I will make sure I'm there to give her a very big hug and tell her how proud I am of her. But there's just no need for her to.
Okay. Do you ever think a time?
Nigeria.
Do you think
As
a time?
for the video, he's a young man. Hello.
Sorry, let me let you
young
finish.
Man who. He's a young man who is just concerned for his country. I have fundamental differences with Olusegun Obasanjo, but you do not attack the message rather than the messenger. So if we were to address the message, is the message false? The people are hungry. Can we just concentrate on that? If we can't reduce the price of fuel, if we can't reduce the electricity tariff, can we just produce enough food to feed our citizens, for God's sake? Simple.
Do you ever think a time would come?
People buy cars, 200 million, buy this, buy that. Can't we buy tractors to plow the land and feed our citizens? No, I'm not hungry. Do I look like a hungry man? You like sell food any? In fact, my problem is to have appetite.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
Onokpasa.
So people are hungry. The majority of us are hungry.
No, let me ask you a question. Do you ever think a time? Who says he's hungry? Edgar. Do you ever think a time would come? Do you ever think a time would come when godfatherism and man no man would not play a role in politics? Can you ever see it happening in our government?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Not to talk of women.
Why I don't think so is that, you know, we just spin narratives in Nigeria. What is a godfather? A godfather is really just a mentor. It depends on how it works. If for instance, if it's a question of one man saying, nobody can be anything here without me, That is the bad side of godfatherism. If it is for me to look at a young man and say, you have potential, I think you can do this, you can play this role, then I support the person. Well, some people will still say I'm a godfather. I would prefer to say I'm a mentor. So it all depends. It takes somebody to lead someone somewhere. Even our Lord Jesus Christ still depended on John the Baptist to show him the path. So it depends on how you look at it. But this crazy system of some people just holding everyone else to ransom, and without me you can't be anything, that one just has to. It will certainly come to an end. This like a teething process. Water we find is level, and we will get better. Let's not lose hope in our country.
Okay, let's have Tietie. Edgar, it's not your show, Edgar. Keep quiet. Let me ask you my guest questions. Stop talking. Okay. Shush. So let me ask you, Frank, what role do you think international partnerships play in helping Nigeria tackle its challenges? And how can the government leverage such alliances without compromising its sovereignty?
Oh, that's a very fantastic question. And it's so loaded that we can take a whole day trying to deconstruct it. First, do you want to know whether it's the international community that has contributed to the problems of Nigeria today? And then, like I wanted to open with, I said we are looking at a contrast of many successes versus the failure of Nigeria. So we should be, concerned about why we are a country on its knees now. But you have asked a very good question that can actually unravel the reason. First, the international community does not owe us anything. As a great country that Nigeria has been, as the leader, a sort of leader of the non-aligned movement in the African region, in the African continent, the leader of Africa, we led African liberation in this continent, and we are not getting enough credit for it. This is a great country, and I'm very proud of this country anytime, any day, irrespective of the failing situation that we are in. However, if the international community does not like Nigeria, we know that. And Fela, I will always respect the memory of Fela Adekunle Kuti, who has always reminded us that these same people in United Nations, you think they have your interest, or you think the colonial masters have your interest, or the ones that our highly respected president just visited, you think they have our interest. So what are we? You are thinking about the donor funds that are coming to massage and then to further extend their influence and find ways to keep us in this state of bad leadership. See, we need to realize that we are a country that has lost unity of purpose. That's why the competition in domination or in dominating one another is what has brought us here. Do we have a unity of purpose like the Great Britain, or like that has now made so much of a success of its colonial past and has now made Kemi one of our own to be theirs now that she's rejecting us? That's quite a successful feat on the part of the British. Or are we trying to say that, look, we're looking at successful people. Kemi is a successful politician. So is Davido, a highly successful musician. So is the most highly respected Olusegun Obasanjo, who among them can match his record in this country. So when he speaks, we should take it very seriously. I'm not aware the presidency responded to him. They should have some measure of trepidation when they turn to Obasanjo, because the man has his records. They're there. As one of the president who has shown some measure of vision, some measure of purpose for this country. So why are we a country on our knees? It's simply because we are working across purposes. One of the major tribes, they are using politics to attempt to dominate in order to control resources against those which they are referred to as minorities. So Nigeria is a plunder zone. Everybody is trying to use either politics or one way or the other, one chicanery, one trick or the other to capture power, to capture resources and for themselves. We are a self-centered people to the extent that nobody, that may be extreme, that we hardly have persons who are at leadership position, especially at the center, who has the interest of this country, the future of this country, the future of the children of this country. That's why we're on our knees. There is no country that has not had problems, that has not grappled with more serious problems. You need to look at the number of civil wars that took place in Europe. Europe plunged us into 2 world wars. They've had more problems than we had. But look, at the point in time, they formed nation states, they came together, they agreed on purpose, and they went there. And today, shamefully, painfully, we are not the ones who are running them, who are enslaving ourselves. For goodness sake, please, let's come back home. Let us now begin to think. This government must now realize that beyond the time we had a civil war, and after the civil war, General Yakubu Gowon, established the National Youth Service Corps as a means of uniting this country. Do we have any major national program to unite this country, to give us a sense of purpose like the Americans have, that they are able to come together and say, no, America first? Can any Nigerian sincerely say, we can put Nigeria first? Rather, what we have are a group of persons who constantly talk down on this country, and then we are angry. Why should we be angry? If we are angry, let it be righteous anger. Why should Kenya? Kenya is now leaving us behind. Ghana is leaving us behind. Everyone is leaving us behind. Whereas the Almighty God made us a natural-born leader in this continent, with all our resources, with all of these fine people, highly talented, who are shaking the whole world. Something is wrong, and it's up to us to solve it, and not looking up to the international community.
Thank you, Tietie. That was a very passionate, very, very passionate response, and I totally feel you. Can we get back to Edgar? Mr. E. Okay, you know, as bad as... I know, so you did here. You know, as bad as the situation is, they always say behind every dark cloud is a silver lining of sorts. I don't know whether that is appropriate to use now, but yes, the phrase does exist. Now, let's talk about the success stories, because there are some success stories. So the success stories of Nigerians
Definitely.
striving against all odds prove that opportunities do exist. So how can society amplify these narratives to inspire others while still holding the leadership accountable?
Okay, so I always say something that the political space is the last frontier. So the silver lining in this dispensation of doom, began to show during Obasanjo's administration, where he was able to rebuild the middle class, based on the market economic reforms that he did. So that silver lining has been in place from then till now. So look at other sectors are evolving, are reforming, are performing according to international standards, and that's why they can compete. You get me with international So look at the economy, look at technology, look at entertainment, look at media, look at the studio we're sitting down here right now. This Arise TV is competing very favorably. You get against CNN and the rest. 5, 10, 15 years ago, you walk into any office, you see people watching CNN and Sky News. Today is maybe not say go a day and they talk about, but it's actually the Arise TV that they are watching. So you find out that the silver lining has come, impacted other sectors of the society. It's just this political part of it that say having the kwashoko. It's just the political part of it. And sadly, the political part is the one that now decides and controls the other side of it. Do you notice something here in the picture that released in France? Elumelu was in front. Dangote was in front. BUA was in front. I don't know why that was done. Our ministers were at the back. So that shows you that the silver lining has reached France. You get me now? So do we expect a considerable change in political space? And I say yes. And what will happen there is what they call the natural selection. Whether we like it or not, we are human beings. People don't live forever. People will go. Azikiwe went. Awolowo went. Abacha went. That man in Ibadan, that Amalaman, Adedibu went. You get? Now,
who said that if someone says he wants to rule for life, leave him. We live on that.
So which takes us back to followership. So the question now is that, are we ready as followers to consolidate on the reforms that natural selection will throw at us? That is the question we should be asking ourselves today. And I want to say now that our generation, or what Jesutega called generation, wasted generation. My own generation, I'm 55. My own generation, from 40 to 60, I don't even know what to call us. I don't even what's past wasted. Because we were thrown up in servitude. Arrested development. We were trained to be servants, engineer, doctor. We're executioners. We're not thinkers. Now, that's why I found out that somebody, my column coming out tomorrow, I labeled some Nigerians centurions. A centurion is somebody who is above 100 years of age, but officially he's saying he's 80 and 90. So I named the centurions, and I'll name them here now. Obasanjo is a centurion. Tinubu is a centurion. Afebalola is a centurion. Now, the question now is that this our generation, we are shameless. Because somebody like, what's that your guy name now? That your guy was South. That one with the culture over now, that chief. That chief now will be Minister of Information in First Republic. Edgar Clark. I was shocked to find out recently that Edgar Clark was Minister of Information in the First Republic. And today is 2024. Next month will be 2025. He's still playing a very critical role. What has happened to the generation of 44 to 60? Tinubu is, we know his official age. What has happened generation 40 to 60? Are we ready? And good thing about the whole thing is that whether we like it or not, the Davido generation has taken us out. Absolutely. That is why
Thank you
can
so much.
See.
Edgar, let me round up. I need to ask Tietie and Jesutega one question is before I round up. So, where's Jesutega? Onokpasa. I want to ask you, I mean, this sounds so bleak and so discouraging. So do you believe there's a tipping point, or there will be a tipping point where Nigeria can no longer recover from its challenges? Or is there always hope for a turnaround, regardless of the circumstances?
I don't think so. I don't think so. In fact, a long time ago...
You don't think there's a turnaround? Any hope of a turnaround?
The problem... I don't think there is we are hopeless. Far from it. I resolved it both philosophically and mathematically. There is so much resources you can devote to evil and retrogression. The resource will run out. Because people actually need stability, they need reliability, they need development, they will attain critical mass at the level of progress, if only for self-interest. So nobody should say we are hopeless. Not at all. That things are bad. Terribly bad. Very, very bad, which we must acknowledge. I mean, you have to be godless not to acknowledge the fact that things are bad. Does not mean we are hopeless. We have hope, for God's sake. Seriously, we have hope.
Thank you so much.
And that we have bad leaders who run clannish and almost Kabbalistic administrations does not mean that our country has tanked. Far from it.
It's very
we
good.
are here.
It's very good. It's very good. It's very good to
over
end.
200 million people.
Thank you so much.
We will bounce back.
Thank you so much, and I truly believe that we can. Thank you so much, Joseph Edgar. Thank you so much, Frank Tietie. Thank you so much, Jesutega Onokpasa, for a very vibrant and interesting conversation. At the end of the day, we do hope for a better Nigeria, and we hope that we'll see that in our lifetime. Thank you so much for being with me on Perspectives. So, Nigeria's story is complex. Kemi Badenoch's critique, Obasanjo's blunt assessment, and Davido's recent remarks may sting, but they push us to confront hard truths about our nation's journey. For every failure, there's resilience and a chance for redemption. The road ahead is ours to shape. Let's keep striving for a Nigeria we can all be proud of, one that inspires hope at home and abroad. And as I keep saying, life is a learning curve. That's all we have time for today. You've been watching Perspectives here on Arise News with me, Ruth Osime. We shall be back at the same time next week by the special grace of God. Until then, stay positive and enjoy every minute of the week. Goodbye.